The news cycle begins with an accused terrorist on U.S. soil. Al-Qaeda member Abu Anas al-Libi is back here in New York today. He's facing arraignment for his alleged part in the 1998 U.S. embassy bombings in Kenya and Tanzania. He was captured last week by U.S. forces in Libya, and since then, he's been interrogated abroad, a U.S. warship, and now he's back on dry land in extraordinary time. Apparently, he was suffering from a terrible case of hepatitis C and needed medical attention. At least 200 people were killed in those embassy attacks when the buildings were bombed within minutes of each other.
A poignant ceremony at the White House last hour for our nation's newest Medal of Honor recipient. Army Captain William Swenson received the award for his actions during a lengthy battle against the Afghan Taliban back in 2009. 5 Americans were killed in that fight, where Swenson risked his life to recover the fallen and save others from death.
Will Swenson was there for his brothers. He was there for their families. As a nation, we thank God that patriots like him are there for us all.
The U.S. Supreme Court is hearing arguments today in a case about whether Michigan's voters have the power to ban the use of race in college admissions. Justices will decide whether that change of the state constitution from about 7 years ago is not allowed, and the outcome could impact similar anti-affirmative action bans passed by voters in California and Washington State. Now, that news from the High Court leads us to our MSNBC special series, Presumed Guilty. As the government shutdown continues, one of the most pivotal officials in the Justice Department is on furlough, the pardon attorney. But according to our new report, it turns out he hasn't been very busy.
I think this is going to surprise a lot of people, but this president is the most miserly pardoner of any modern president.
The numbers back that up. Barack Obama has the lowest clemency rate in modern history. At the same point in his presidency, Bill Clinton had pardoned 1 in every 8 applicants. George W. Bush, 1 in every 33. And President Obama, just 1 in every 50. Why does the pardon power matter? The Constitution empowers the president to decide when the interests of justice are served by overturning a conviction or shortening an unfair prison sentence. Beyond individual mistakes in the courtroom, one of the most compelling reasons to use the pardon power is to release Americans serving prison terms for activities that the law would punish differently today. A prime example, the shifting approach to the war on drugs. The Justice Department is no longer seeking harsh penalties for some nonviolent drug users, but it has yet to apply that same logic to inmates serving time right now for those same offenses.
The other end, the executive himself has discretion under the pardon power, and I think there's a correlating imperative to use it at both ends.
Mark Osler runs the law clinic for commutations at St. Thomas University in Minnesota.
We have people serving time, over 5,000 people probably, serving time under harsh crack laws that have now been undone by Congress.
Back with us to explore the moral question facing the president's Michael Skolnick, director of the documentary Lockdown, about reforming the war on drugs. And Michael's the president of GlobalGrind.com, a hip-hop culture and news site. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me again.
You've supported this president and his re-election. What do you make of the moral character of this issue on pardons and commutations?
Yeah, I think we've been big supporters of this president, but I think the president's been slow at the gate on this issue. I think we do much better on this issue. I think in the first term of his administration, he certainly has been focused, as we see now in a government shutdown, on much bigger pieces of policy. And I think he sort of let this one go. I think we've seen a major shift in the president, not just in his talk, but in his action in the past 6 months. As you know, we wrote a letter for the 175 people to the president urging him not just to end the war on drugs, but also to fix the pardoning office and the pardoning attorney, because it just hasn't worked. So we're asking the president not just for more pardons, but we have to look at the 5,000 folks who are still locked up under those crack powder disparities and commute those sentences as well.
Yeah, we're talking about the war on drugs here and what we do with non-violent drug offenders. The Obama DOJ has moved incrementally toward what we can call war on drug reform. How do we get to substantive reform for these millions of individuals who are locked up for nonviolent crimes?
I think, Torres, the one thing we have to remember is that the pardoning office, we can't fix 35 years of horrible drug policy. It's not going to fix. But what it can do is it can offer some relief to those individuals who have served far too long sentences and who are no threat to society. If we are to break this war on drugs, to me, the domino domino that must fall is mandatory minimum sentencing. Right. And certainly the Attorney General has hinted that he wants to end this, and the folks in the Senate, Senator Durbin and Senator Rand, have shown they want to end this as well. That is the piece of the tool that the law enforcement and that the courts have used to pack the prisons, is by threatening these young men with these horrible sentences, and they plea out. 93% of drug offenses in this country plea out, and now we have 2.2 million folks in prison.
It's amazing to see Republicans like Mike Lee and Rand Paul on the right side of this issue.
Interesting. You know, a big fear, though, is that you let someone out and then they go and they commit a heinous crime. You have the backlash of, I told you so. You know, what did you expect? And obviously here we're talking about nonviolent drug offenders. And, you know, the idea that you let 5,000 people go, the odds are that at least one of them will commit a crime. So talk to us about how this plays into this conversation.
I think actually possibly Obama's greater fear than that is the politicalization of the pardoning office in the past. I think if you look at what's happened with Mark Rich, with Scooter Libby, with even Richard Nixon, I think this administration has shown that their White House is not for sale. And they're afraid that if they are to not just let out someone who might have committed another crime, but let somebody out for a political reason or because of privilege. Most people who get out, who are pardoned or get commuted, are white.
Yeah, and Michael, you mentioned that issue of being pardoned and the disparity. You're almost 4 times more likely to get pardoned historically as a white inmate than as an African-American inmate, which is an incredible disparity. On top of that, you mentioned the Louis Libby pardon, which Louis Libby tried to get a pardon, only got a commutation, and the New York Times was just reporting this weekend about how in the limo ride to the inauguration, Bush was advising Obama, you've got to fix this, you've got to get a good program up, and yet the president's held on to the same pardon attorney. He hasn't even put in his own person to take a different stand.
Ronald Rogers was appointed by Bush in 2008 at the end of Bush's term. I certainly believe that Ronald Rogers should be replaced with a new pardoning attorney. I think that's part of the issue. What is coming before the president's desk? What is he seeing? How many, applications is he seeing for pardoning or for pardons? But we have to not just address this one issue of pardons, but the war on drugs has to be a central part of this president's second term.
Part of the problem, Ari, is that prison itself is criminogenic. Prison makes people be better criminals, so we have to stop sending so many people to prison.
Right, and I think that's where that also hits on the recidivism that Abby is concerned about. A good concern, but you have to figure out how to harmonize this so you're not locking people away forever, making them more likely to reoffend. We're out of time.
The good news is, for my Republican friends, a lot of our Republican friends support this, across the country.
Some of the Rand Paul's leading this movement.
That's exactly right. So this is a bipartisan issue, and we can get this done.
Michael Skolnick, thank you. Action on the issue will require a lot more public engagement, including the Republicans Michael's talking about. So come to our Facebook page, whatever your party, to learn more and see a link to the presumed guilty report. You can post comments. We'll answer questions. You can also engage on Twitter at the hashtag presumed guilty. Up next, from her heart to yours, Crystal has an inspiring pep talk for John Boehner. Well, sort of.